right under London streets, there are rivers a few feet away. People think it's just the River Thames, but in fact there are 15 or 20 buried rivers. Two-thirds of the tributaries within London are partly buried or completely buried. If you look down drain covers, you can actually see them in the distance flowing past. And you can hear them quite easily too. Water is essential to life, and we don't think about that explicitly very often. The rivers were used to run mills, to run tanneries, all the early industries. And for drinking water, it's essential to have fresh drinking water, so people congregate around rivers.
The idyllic coexistence between city and water was short-lived. In the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution spread through London and around the world. City populations exploded, and wastewater became too much to manage. The streams and rivers that had enabled urban settlement in the first place became putrid, open-air sewers.
The conditions got particularly poor around the River Thames. In 1858, the Great Stink, as it was known, occurred. There was a particularly hot summer. It bred bacteria. The smell was much worse than usual. Parliament couldn't work, and London began to close down.
But bad smell was the least of their worries. Cholera spread through contaminated water, killing city dwellers by the thousands. It was a 19th century version of the Black Death. There was an increased panic that cities had become unlivable. The only solution was to confine rivers underground.
The project was led by Joseph Bazalgette, who was a sewer pioneer. He saw the need for a system that would cater for the whole city, and he put it into action on an enormous scale. The quality to which they built these sewer tunnels was astonishing. Nowadays, the best engineers are working on aeroplanes, high-tech stuff like that. In the Victorian era, they were laying bricks. And that's why a lot of rivers are under our feet flowing through Victorian tunnels.
It's because it's London and it's all based on rivers, and the rivers are pushing everything up, and the drains are overflooding because they're getting water from the top and water from the bottom. So we're really about to float away. Yeah, we are. It was the hailstorm in Bassett's.
In 2007, in the UK, there was an instance where a month's rainfall fell in just a few hours. If this type of event occurred in London, then it's been estimated that it could cause as much as £10 billion worth of damage.
Burying rivers and paving over landscapes have gotten us in quite the bind. Concrete can't absorb water. During heavy storms, drains fill up quickly, and rainwater has nowhere else to flow. Southeast London is built in a valley and has always been prone to flooding. Through the heart of it flows the River Quaggy.
It flows underneath the buildings here, so this part of the river has been Culver did probably 100 years or so. When I first started working in London and saw these concrete channels and culverts, as an ecologist, there was a certain sense of outrage.
This area is a testing ground for a completely new strategy in flood prevention.
Taking away concrete sides, daylighting rivers, and actually creating areas from which floodwater can be stored. Before the scheme, Sutcliffe Park was an ecological desert. The Craggy has now been opened up. It's been transformed to a local nature reserve and a series of wetland habitats, quite rare in London.
In times of severe rain, barriers to the park are opened. The nature reserve becomes a holding area for excess water until it can flow out safely under the city's streets. It's called a no-regret strategy. Whether or not it's enough to manage the future effects of climate change, scientists can't predict. But in the meantime, residents are rejoicing in the change.
As a consequence of the Sutcliffe Park, there's been a growing head of steam from different communities to say, why can't our river be like this? Which is fantastic.